In 1620, a group of 102 pilgrims boarded the Mayflower to escape the corrupt Church of England. They sailed towards the Hudson River, now modern-day New York, but were blown off course and taken to Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Though some believe this was intentional so they could create an entirely new society away from the other settlers. Having arrived in November, they struggled in the harsh cold. Luckily, they found an abandoned Native American village near Plymouth Harbor, and this is where they began building. About 45 of the 102 settlers died before winter was over. As winter was nearing its end, they made formal contact with a local tribe called the Wampanoag. One member of the tribe spoke English due to spending years as a slave in Europe and was able to make a treaty with the Pilgrims that neither group would harm the other and they'd help each other out. You see, the Wampanoag were dwindling in numbers due to a recent illness, and now they feared rival tribes because they had grown weak. This illness is why their village that the Pilgrims found was abandoned. And as for the Pilgrims, well, they had weapons, but they didn't know how to grow anything on this new land. Both groups needed each other for survival. The Wampanoag helped the Pilgrims farm, and after spring and summer came and went, they had a bountiful harvest and celebrated with a 3-day feast consisting of things like deer, fowl, and corn. About 50 Pilgrims and 90 Wampanoag attended, and this is what is widely considered to be the first Thanksgiving. At least this is what they teach us in school, but this isn't the full story. They never called this a Thanksgiving, nor did they repeat it the following year. Actually, a very bloody war between the two groups eventually broke out over land, but the real reason we celebrate Thanksgiving today is in large part thanks to this woman, Sarah Josepha Hale, a mother of 5 children who lost her husband in 1822 after only 9 years of marriage. With 5 children and herself to care for, she embarked on a literary career, writing poems, novels, and even a nursery rhyme you all know, Mary Had a Little Lamb, in 1830. She also wrote this novel called Northwood, A Tale of New England, one of the earliest novels by a woman. It describes American life and values. It was also a political statement. She opposed things like slavery and war. Sarah promoted unity in her work. Part of that unity was this idea of Thanksgiving. She believed beginning a yearly tradition like Thanksgiving would bring us all together when so much of the nation seemed divided, especially in this era leading up to the American Civil War. This book is credited as the first detailed depiction of a true American Thanksgiving. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, Sarah Hale didn't invent Thanksgiving. Days of giving thanks were common in England, and they carried over to New England. However, these were never established holidays, more of a local religious celebration for certain events or victories. They focused much more on prayer and worship than feasting, whereas the first Pilgrim celebration was more secular due to their rejection of public religious display. It was actually closer to a harvest festival, which did include feasting. The Pilgrims in Plymouth actually held a second Thanksgiving 2 years after their first, in June 1623, which did include a bit of both religion and secular celebration, which was much closer to our Thanksgiving. And even George Washington proclaimed the first national day of public thanksgiving and prayer on Thursday, November 26, 1789, the first Thanksgiving under the new Constitution. But again, these Thanksgiving celebrations were sporadic, they weren't recurring holidays. Just whenever the next several presidents felt like we needed them, with the exception of Thomas Jefferson, who thought it was a conflict of church and state. But back to Sarah Hale. In her Northwood book, she wrote, "The roasted turkey took precedence on this occasion, being placed at the head of the table." Back then, turkey was popular for hunting, especially for harvest celebrations, as they were large and plentiful in both the United States and England. And turkeys were really only good for eating, unlike cows or chickens that produce milk and eggs. So again, Sarah didn't come up with turkey for Thanksgiving, but she made it a tradition. In the coming decades, after gaining more influence and popularity, she used the magazine she edited for called Godey's Lady's Book to begin to really push this idea for a holiday of unity. She started writing fictional stories, directions on how to set up your table, preaching how it would be a good holiday for the American people, and even began to create the menu with things like cranberry sauce, stuffing, pumpkin pie, and turkey. Around 1846, she began to really campaign for Thanksgiving to become an official American holiday. She wrote to governors, senators, and even the presidents, starting with the 12th, Zachary Taylor, and all the way to the 16th, Abraham Lincoln, who, fresh off the victory at Gettysburg during the Civil War, finally listened to her and proclaimed the last Thursday of November as Thanksgiving Day in 1863. However, having it on the last Thursday would sometimes make it land on the last day of November, which made it feel like it was cutting too deep into the Christmas shopping season and meant less spending while the economy was still trying to recover from the Great Depression. So in 1939, Franklin D. Roosevelt changed it to the second to last Thursday of November. He was able to change the date easily because up until now, the date was just a proclamation that everyone followed. And funny enough, 16 states refused to change to this new date, and for 2 years, Thanksgiving was celebrated on 2 different weeks across the country. Until 1941, Congress stepped in and legally made Thanksgiving the 4th Thursday of November to account for when November has 5 Thursdays. And that's how Thanksgiving was made into a national holiday. Let's just hope it doesn't change again. And let's all say thank you to the efforts of Sarah Josepha Hale, the mother of Thanksgiving. And that's more or less how we began this yearly tradition, which is my personal favorite. I always say Thanksgiving feels a lot more like Christmas than Christmas does, with the big feast and family coming together. At least that's what it's like for me. Let me know how you celebrate Thanksgiving down in the comments, especially if you do something a little bit different from the American traditions, like different food or different practices. I'm curious to know. And also let me know what you're thankful for. I'm thankful for this channel giving me a creative outlet. When I first started the channel, I didn't think anyone was gonna care, but it's been steadily growing and it's gotten over 5,000 subscribers and I'm very grateful for that. When the year started, I had planned to have 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year, but that didn't pan out, especially because I stopped posting for a long time. But I'm getting back into it and hopefully I'll reach that goal by the end of next year. But thank you to everyone who has stuck around and continues to watch. I'm very grateful. Alright, that's it from me. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Remember to stay cultured, and I'll hopefully see you all before Christmas. Take care.